The Critique of Judgement by Immanuel Kant, a work in aesthetics and metaphysics, first published 1790. The principal ideas of which are: judgment in general is the faculty of thinking the particular as contained under the universal. If a judgment brings the particular under a given universal, it is determinate, and if it discovers a universal by which to judge a given particular, it is reflective. Taste is the faculty of judging an object by a satisfaction or dissatisfaction, which is not dependent on any quality of the object itself. The satisfaction is a subjective response to the mere representation of the object, hence it is disinterested. Even though beauty is subjective, it is universal. The beautiful is that which pleases universally because it satisfies the will as if it served a purpose. The sublime is found when a formless object is represented as boundless, even though its totality is present in thought. Since the publication of the Critique of Judgement, it has been of the highest importance to the philosophy of art and of religion. It met opposition as radically sceptical and destructive of theology. Indeed, Kant intended to set limits on religious thinking. It opened promising new pathways in aesthetics, still found highly worthy of exploration. The work is based wholly on the psychology of faculties and the logic Kant adopted in the Critique of Pure Reason of 1781 and the Critique of Practical Reason of 1788. The former treats the faculty of understanding which, presupposing natural law, brings us our knowledge of nature. The latter treats reason, which is practical reason, will or desire, which presupposes freedom and legislates for us in accordance with moral law. While writing the first two critiques, Kant believed that the faculty of pleasure and pain could have no critique, being passive only, but he came to regard this faculty to be the same as the judgment, which subsumes representations under concepts, always accompanied by a feeling response. He declared finally that judgment could have a regulative critique of its own, showing its functions and limitations, even though the faculty brings us no objective knowledge. Indeed, the Critique of Judgement would show the ground of union between understanding and reason, although their presuppositions had seemingly forced them irrevocably apart. The desire or will, when realized, is actually a natural cause, specifically that cause which acts in accordance with concepts. Concepts are of two kinds: natural concepts and concepts of freedom. The understanding carries on a theoretical legislation through natural concepts resulting in knowledge. The practical reason carries on a moral legislation through precepts resulting in choices of action. Understanding and reason legislate over the very same territory of experience, yet without conflicting. However, The practical reason presupposes a supersensible substratum, which cannot be experienced, but which is necessary as a condition of freedom of choice. The understanding can give knowledge only through intuition, which can never reach the thing in itself. The concept of freedom, on the other hand, represents its object as a thing in itself, but cannot give it in intuition. The region of the thing in itself is supersensible, but while we cannot know it, we can impute reality to it. This must be a practical reality founded on our necessity of acting, not on any source of substantive knowledge concerning it. To postulate such a substratum enables us to transfer our thought between the realm of nature and the realm of freedom and think according to the principles of each in turn. The deduction of the principle of judgment is crucial to the book. And I quote, "Judgment in general is the faculty of thinking the particular as contained under the universal." End quote. Either the universal or the particular might be given. If the universal, then the judgment which brings the particular under it is determinate. The judgment brings knowledge according to a priori laws and with finality. But if the particular is given, then the judgment must find for itself a law to judge by, in the absence of a concept. Hence, it is reflective. And if the judgments delivered are to be regarded as laws, this must be on the assumption of some underlying unifying principle. The principle must be this: as universal laws of nature have their ground in our understanding, as was shown in the Critique of Pure Reason, particular empirical laws must be considered in accordance with such a unity as they would have if an understanding had furnished them to our cognitive faculties, so as to make possible a system of experience according to particular laws of nature. The concept of an actual object contains its purpose. The principle of judgment, which we take then on the suppositions, is purposive in nature. For nature to realize a purpose would be to carry out a particular law of nature. If nature were guided by an understanding, then purposiveness would underlie its variety as the unifying factor. This concept of purposiveness is a priori. It provides a principle for reflecting upon nature without needing specific experiences of nature. Yet we can never prove real purpose in nature. We only justify our way of thinking about it. The faculty of judgment functions also in the faculty of pleasure and pain. When the understanding shows us an order of nature, and the judgment apprehends it under the aspect of purposiveness, we feel a pleasure, since the attainment of any aim is bound up with the feeling of pleasure. Because the ground of this feeling is a principle a priori, the judgment is valid for every man and woman. The imagination is the faculty of a priori intuitions. Our pleasure arises when the judgment of purposiveness places the imagination in agreement with the understanding, shows a form such as an understanding would furnish. The judgment of taste represents purposiveness without mediation of a concept, but purposiveness may also be represented objectively as the harmony of the form of an object with the possibility of the thing itself according to some prior concept which contains the basis of this form. In two ways, a concept of an object may be realized. A person may make an object which fulfills his preconceived concept, or nature may present an object realizing a concept which we supply. Thus we can regard natural beauty as the presentation of the concept of subjective purposiveness, and natural purposes as the presentation of the concept of an objective purposiveness. Hence, the critique of judgment is divided into the critique of the aesthetical judgment, considering the former, involving the feeling of pleasure, and the critique of teleological judgment, treating the latter, involving the understanding and reason according to concepts. While the aesthetical judgment is the special faculty of taste, the teleological judgment is not a special faculty, but only the reflective judgment in general, judging of certain objects of nature according to reflective principles. True to his critical logic, Kant considers in turn the quality, quantity, relation, and modality of the judgment of taste in a subdivision called the analytic of the aesthetical judgment, and then in his dialectic he resolves an antinomy of contradiction, contradiction is a better word, which arises in aesthetics. By the aesthetical, Kant means that element whose determining ground can be no more than subjective. Consequently, the aesthetic apprehension does not depend on existential relations of the judged object with other things, its usefulness, for example, but only in the relation of the representation of the object to the observing subject. In contrast, the pleasant and the good always involve a representation not only of the object, but of some connection of the judging subject with that object. Hence, they bring an interested, rather than a free, satisfaction. Taste is the faculty of judging of an object or of the method of representing one by a satisfaction or dissatisfaction which as to quality is entirely disinterested. The object of such satisfaction is called a beautiful. Since the satisfaction does not depend on a particular relationship with a particular subject, it may be thought of as resting on something present in everyone and hence binding universally. Since the element inheres in the subject, not in the object judged, the quantity is a subjective universality. What we postulate is that all rational minds are constituted alike in the relation of their cognitive faculties. For a representation to be capable of becoming a recognition, for a representation to be capable of becoming a cognition of all, at all, requires imagination for bringing together, in ordered fashion, the manifold of phenomena and understanding for providing a concept under which the representations may be united. But this requires as its condition a free play in the action of imagination and understanding. Aesthetic pleasure must be communicable among all minds so constituted. What the judgment of taste asserts as universally valid is not some attribute of the object, as in the claim that something is pleasant or good, but rather the claim of our presupposition of the communicability of aesthetic pleasure among subjects. As to quantity, then, the beautiful is that which pleases universally without requiring or providing a concept. A purpose is a concept of an object insofar as the concept is regarded as the cause of the object. When we can think of an object only as though caused by a concept, for us that object has purposiveness even though we cannot know whether it has purpose. That is, it has purposiveness without purpose. The mere form of purposiveness is given, and it is that in which we take pleasure. As to relation, beauty is the form of the purposiveness of an object, so far as this is perceived in it without any representation of a purpose. The modality of the judgment of taste is necessity. It is, however, neither objective necessity nor practical necessity, like those respectively of understanding and reason, but exemplary necessity. It requires the assent of all to a judgment which is regarded as the example of a universal rule that we cannot state. This assent may be expected only on the assumption, introduced above, the communicability of our cognitions. Under this presupposition, an individual has a right to state his judgment of taste as a rule for everyone, and thus assert of all subjects the particular judgment arising from his own experience. The beautiful, then, is that which without any concept is cognized as the object of a necessary satisfaction. I shall end there for now. In part 2 I shall continue with the judgment of the sublime.